All right. Well, welcome to June's Youth Coordinators Connect call. A very small but mighty group we have here. And first, we currently have no ASL interpreter on. Oh, hold on. Here he comes. Okay. So we now have our ASL interpreter. Um, And we will go ahead and get started for today.
Alyssa, this is Kaborski. I do
Okay.
not have a camera. I'm in the airport. Brad is turning on his computer, so he will be here shortly. I just registered him and he's going to come and join us instead of Lena.
Okay.
Sorry for the delay. We were trying to get Lena out of there and it's not possible. So we're sending Brad to you instead.
Okay. We'll hang tight for a moment then.
Thank you so much for your patience.
Hello, everyone. We're hanging tight for a minute for our ASL interpreter to come on. So if you could just be patient with me a couple minutes longer, and then we'll go ahead and get started.
All right, Brad is here. Thank you so much for waiting.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the Youth Coordinators Connect call for June. And we'll go ahead and get started. We are a small but mighty group today. So we'll just start with any burning topics that anyone has. Do you have anything you specifically would like to talk about on today's call? What's going on in your centers this summer? Does anyone have any interesting programs going on? You know, there's usually a lot of youth stuff happening. All right, is anyone offering any? Oh, Kayla, I don't hear you. I saw you come off mute and your lips were moving, but I didn't hear anything. Yeah, we're still not hearing you, Kayla.
She signed. Okay, 1 minute. Thank you, interpreter.
Crystal, do you want to talk a little bit about the youth fair that you guys are trying to do?
Can you hear me? Aha, can you hear me now?
Yes, there you
Yay,
are.
we found it. All righty. Well, I am Kayla Robertson, a youth coordinator in St. George, Utah with RRCI. I was just going to say that one of the summer youth programs we have going on this summer is our younger youth program. We serve 5 to 11-year-olds on an application based process and do fun activities in the community, um, such as museums, going to parks, barbecue this week. We're going to do a Mario Kart race in a couple weeks with cardboard boxes. So it's going to be lots of fun just to kind of kick off discussion.
Thank you for that. Crystal, did you want to talk about the youth fair at all? Oh, you're having some difficulties with your mic as well. It must be one of those days for technology. Is anyone else offering any youth programs this summer? Youth initiatives?
Hi, this is Krista Griffin. I got my mic to work.
All right, fabulous.
Um, we generally don't have a lot of youth program options in the summer because we run that fast track program where we offer those services in schools for the counties that we serve. So we have like 300 consumers that we serve for that. So we try to do a small version of that in the month of July, where they would maybe do some fast track services um, once or twice a week, just during the month of July, just to kind of keep them refreshed with certain things and just focus on certain topics where we're meeting those deliverables. But we do try to have like a youth fair for one of the counties that we service where We either would join another organization and sponsor or partner and provide maybe some school supplies and things of that nature, and or we would have the event ourselves at our office where we provide games and food and things like that. But it really differs depending on the summer and how much feedback we get about availability from our consumers.
Thank you. Can you talk more about that fast track program? What is that?
Fast Track is a youth leadership program that we offer. It's free ETS transition services. And so in that fast track program that we primarily offer to high schools and transition programs between the three counties that we service, there we are focusing on self-advocacy, we focus on job exploration, we focus on some career readiness, some workplace readiness, some work-based learning experiences. We cover things from interviews to communication to how to advocate not for yourself but for your communities. So it's just kind of a plethora of topics. We do have a curriculum that we use for it. And then we also have some activities that parallel with it. Some of those lessons we parallel with those classroom teachers so that we're kind of teaching the same things at the same time. It's about 45 minutes to an hour of a lesson that gives us an opportunity to kind of build those relationships with their students and those families. And then it kind of helps when we do that, because then if we end up having to do an IEP meeting, we've already kind of built a relationship with the student, and it helps the families be more open to utilizing the services from the center. So in a way, it's kind of the best of both worlds. It kind of increases our consumers, but also helps us reach out to our student population.
Hi, this is Jordan. Crystal, you said it's a curriculum-based program. Is that one that your center developed or purchased for the curriculum?
So we did purchase our curriculum, but it comes from another preset curriculum from a center in the local area who also utilizes it. But we do try to revamp it every year and try to add to it because, as of course, education changes and the information changes. And so we want to make sure that as we're growing in the program, that we're also providing some increased information and making sure that those resources and the things that we're trying to teach them about how to access adult services and community services are updated as things change.
Crystal, how many youth do you usually have at that fast track event?
So we run our program the entire school year. Some of our schools, we do maybe a semester, but it is at the moment, we have about 310 students total between the three service areas. Generally, most classrooms are anywhere between 4 to maybe 26, maybe 29. But it all depends on the school program, the availability. In some schools, we will do the program in all of their life skills classrooms for the high school students. And in the transition programs, we make sure that we cover the full transition that would be in need that would not be utilizing DRS services.
Thank you. And you're in which state?
We are in Illinois. Okay. Our office is in Downers Grove, and we cover DuPage, Kane, and Kendall County. So we have quite a large service area.
Okay. Well, you know, the April conference is in Chicago this October, so sounds like maybe a good workshop topic for the youth stuff, a youth track, something to think
Perhaps,
about.
perhaps.
Does anyone else want to talk about, programs they've got going on at their centers, or, just maybe how you're navigating the summer break when the youth are out of school? Does anyone do any food programs, lunch programs during the summer months?
That's a really good question. I don't know that our center has ever done something like that. And if anybody else does, I would be really interested to know. But I know that we have a lot of community food programs through our school district and the Utah Food Bank and some other programs here in Utah. I'm not sure about other places. Anybody else know?
I know here in Illinois, they're doing the summer EBT programs. Most of the school districts are doing summer meals where you don't necessarily have to be a student in the district, but if you live in the local area, you can go in for breakfast and lunch. Some of those districts are doing like food pickups where you can do like a drive-through line and they'll put the groceries, those lunches and those meals in the cars, things like that. But a food program would actually be a really good idea. But we I don't know, we don't have anything like that here.
Thanks. Does anyone else have anything on the topic? I actually have a question. Do any of the centers represented on the line do anything with youth who are experiencing moving through the juvenile justice system, or anything along that lines, working with youth who have been through the juvenile justice system? Okay. Well, all right. Any other best practices anyone wants to talk about?
I don't know that I have a best practice for this question, but I'd like to know if any of y'all do. We have a summer program that is going on its second year, and it's a good problem to have, but we have a waiting list because we can only take 10 students for our summer program because we're a pretty small staff. Um, do any of y'all come across having a waiting list or have any tips on how to let folks know ahead of time that there'll be a wait?
That is a great question, Jordan. And I can kind of speak to that. We have a cap of 20 students in our summer youth program we do here. And oftentimes I let them know that they will be notified via email if they're in the program. But we haven't ever held a waiting list for it because of the cap. I simply just let them know if you do get into the program, we'll let you know via email. And then there is an application fee, and that application fee is reimbursed if they're not included in the youth program. that's kind of how we've done it in the past. But that is a really good question.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other topic they want to bring up to the group? Anything, any new programs going on? Any big movements in youth programs?
I do have a question. This is Crystal from Illinois, Ainsdale again. Are any of you guys working with consumers that are probably in that under 12 age group? What things are you putting together, or what kind of programming are you doing for that age group?
Sorry, I'm talking a lot today, so if anyone else wants to jump in, please do. My official ages that I work with are ages 5 to 17. And something I do with these really little ones is a lot of emotions. So I wanted to go grab these books that I use. They're a little spot of emotion books. There's like 4 or 5 sets on Amazon that you can get, but each one comes with a different emotion. So there's like confidence, there's anxiety. I won't pull them all out, but there's a lot of good general ones in the set that I have that I use to teach them both techniques and how to recognize that specific emotion in themselves. And then with my summer youth program, because it is focused on the young kids, I do a lot of interactive games that the youth can play with each other. I have done an escape room and gone to parks with them just to help them kind of cultivate team building and friendshipping skills. And then aside from like the actual activities that I do with them, I also provide IEP support for families who have questions about that particular subject, especially through the early years. I have a lot of parents that have questions from going from preschool to kindergarten about what an IEP looks like and how does that shift. And then any conflicts that may arise between the schools and the parents, I help alleviate some of that contention that may arise. But I do work a lot with them on social skills, emotions, those kinds of things. Did that kind of answer your question, Crystal?
Yes. Just curious because I have a majority of that age group is pretty much my group, but I also cover a group all the way up to the age of 24. So I'm kind of all over the place. Most of those young people I deal with parents in IEP advocacy, and a lot of at the table support. So I was just wondering what other ways to kind of reach that younger group to kind of provide those extra supports because it is a little complex.
Yes,
So I'm
and
glad to
a
hear.
lot of a lot of that is true, Crystal, for sure. I think a lot of my experience in IL, I've been doing this almost 3 years now, and it's really hard to figure out that age group specifically because most is focused on transitions, which is awesome. Props to everybody out there doing transition stuff. But the younger youth age is really hard because a lot of the supports come from the schools and some of their after school programs they already have. But to have something specific where we can address some of those topics like their emotions outside of like ABA therapy or classroom settings kind of gives them a unique opportunity with IL to learn some of those skills. So if you ever need anything, I can drop my email in the chat and you're welcome to reach out anytime. I'm always open to new ideas.
Thank you very much.
Kayla, have you identified any barriers within that construct, teaching, kids? I would think that when when we're learning about those emotions, you might end up in, deep water quicker than maybe, uh, have you noticed any of those things that, that come up and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this might be, a broader conversation for home life or, those kinds of nuances?
Surprisingly, no. I have noticed that when they want to when we talk about specific emotions, I try to create a safe space where we can address the emotions and kind of different scenarios generally. I try not to bring up specific situations, especially when it comes to things like abuse or neglect or things like that. Now, if the child brings that up with me in that activity setting, I try to navigate it in a way that brings it back to the main emotion, like verbal redirection. But it's hard when some of their disabilities, such as autism, have them fixated on a specific experience. And so I imagine if I ever get that in my classes or my activities that I do with them, I would, depending on how severe the experience may be, I would just contact CPS, Child Protective Services, or I would communicate with the parent, hey, something came up during this activity. We wanted to notify you. And oftentimes in the plans that I make in SillSuite help me to know what kind of emotions to look for, especially if there are triggers in some of these younger kids that have a lot more trouble recognizing anxiety or anger in themselves. So that's kind of how I've addressed it if it ever does come up, and I haven't really seen it in this age group. Most of the kids are really good about saying, hey, I learned this in therapy. These are some of the techniques that I've done, which is really cool because with 5-year-olds, you wouldn't think that they would have experience knowing some of those, but they're quite smart little cookies. And so it's been fun to kind of share in a place where they feel comfortable sharing as well. So, and these books have been really good as guides for me to make sure we don't get into too serious topics. Hopefully that answered your question, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you. That was super helpful. Is anyone else doing similar programs or, have you had to navigate that kind of situation where, kind of your quote unquote innocent, session or training goes, somewhere where you think, okay, I've identified something going on at home or at school that needs, to be elevated or escalated elsewhere. Okay, is anyone else working with the younger side of the youth age range? Okay. Well, let's see. What other topics are hot right now? Has anyone done any public comment on, say, the waiver renewals or CMS visits in your home state? Is anyone aware of CMS coming into your state to do site visits? Okay, well, I can tell you that April has hired a new youth advisory specialist, and he will be starting June 11. So the next youth coordinator connect call will be facilitated by the new youth person at April. And going forward, I know we'll be looking at ramping up our Lead On program to bring, youth to the April conference. So look for information on that coming out soon. If anyone has any, questions or ideas about that, we'd sure love to hear about it. There's also a youth peer support call, which happens once a month in the evening. So the new position will be handling that as well. I'm I'm grasping for topics here, folks.
I have a question, I guess, and it's strange because there's so many faces and new names that I just don't know. And I haven't been on this call for a while, so it's been a while since I've been here. I just wanted to ask and put out there, what kinds of activities do you guys do with your transitions age? Do you have it structured in a specific topic? Do you have it structured where you do weekly topics every other day? Do you have a once a month meeting for cooking or going in the community? I'm really interested to know how you all do your transitions age activities that are independent of any school programs such as pre-eds, etc.
Yeah, we have we call it our teen and young adult social group. They do meet every month. It's kind of hybrid. So there are some months where it will meet virtually, and there are game nights, there are movie nights, there are activities done virtually that are possible. And then there are in-person meetings where we might take them to a gaming cafe, or they might go to our local arboretum. Sometimes there are opportunities for them to go to farms and different things like that. Or in October, we will have like a fall fest where there will be lots of games and projects and activities they can participate in. But it really is peer led. A lot of the activities that they do are things that interest them. So I think allowing it to be peer led helps the most, because then they're doing things they want to do and you get a pretty good turnout either way.
I love that. Thank you.
And April just completed, I think it was a 4-course series on food injustice. And I believe it was done by Kelly. It was an agreement with April and Kelly's Kitchen, and the Color Coded Chef, I think, was the other participant. And I'm not for sure, but I think that those recordings, those will be available on the April website. So I'll try to get that information out to the group. But they were pretty interesting. There were some, and I think they're going to be doing a workshop at the April conference as well. Things like cooking on a budget. And there was some really hands-on demonstration of cooking. So it seemed to be really well attended. So I'll make sure to get the links out for that. It was pretty interesting.
Question to follow up with that. Will it be posted on the youth page of April or the general page?
Probably the general page, and I will make sure to get the folks who are on this call that link for, those who registered for today's call. Yeah, I just need to find out where those live. And if the post production, has been done on it. So yeah, I was interesting, and I know that they have put in for a workshop for the conference, so I'm sure there'll be more on that to come.
Great. I also had one more question. Has anybody had experience of creating a youth committee in their center? I loved how you were saying that it was peer-led for your social group, Crystal. Is there any youth committees that you do in each of your centers that you have the youth planning some of those activities? The silence is deafening.
We don't have a youth committee per se, but we do have kind of a youth services team where we do provide different supports. I think generally during that social group meeting, there's a discussion about activities that they might be interested for 3 months in advance, and then they kind of choose them and kind of sort them out that way. But a youth committee is not really a bad idea. Sometimes I think we have difficulty with turnout as far as participating in committees with peers. Even with our adult consumers can be difficult. So that's probably why we kind of have shied away from them a little bit.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it would be if it was something that would be a pilot thing that we could do is have some of our adults plan some of the younger kids one, of course, with us as the coordinators facilitating that in terms of the planning process, because sometimes planning their own activities can be hard, but if they feel like they're giving back to the younger populations, I wonder if that would do. Our center works with ages 5 to 24 in that, and I think my partner Crime's on there silently but surely.
Trying to talk.
There she is.
I got my microphone working. I've been trying to talk. I'm trying.
No, don't worry. I just feel like I'm talking a lot. So I know that you can chime in whenever you want, but I was thinking like it might be really cool to get some of our young adults involved with our younger kids, which we've put the offer out there, or I have, and it's been not well received. And I don't know if it's from the youth not fully understanding what their role would be, or if they're nervous about it, or if they just don't have a desire. But that may be something that we can consider on our end, but maybe you at your centers, I don't know if you've ever had experiences with that before.
Yeah, you're gonna fall all the way over in a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had actually wondered about that, if your, 24 or 27-year-olds would be into or willing to pay it forward and, talk about their experiences coming through, that kind of youth program, talking to the younger youth about that. I'm actually maybe surprised it was not well received, but maybe it's a confidence thing, or what do I have to really offer? So that is interesting.
I would almost say that it might have to almost be kind of a mentorship training, just to kind of give them an idea of what mentorship would even look like. There might be more so of the barrier of understanding what they would be doing as opposed to would somebody be providing them a service over them providing somebody else a service, so to speak? So I don't know.
It's a
Just a
good point.
thought.
It's a good point. It's a good point, Crystal. For sure.
I had another question. So we at our RCI also do what we call our TAPS program. It's a transition advocacy program where we go into the high schools and teach a 1 hour class. Do any of you guys have a program similar to that? And if you do, what kind of curriculum do you use and how do you kind of format it? Because for us, we use mentors to go in and teach. And so just I'm fairly new to this job, and so I'm just trying to get other ideas and other options of how to put together this curriculum. Kayla did an amazing job with it, and now I'm just kind of critiquing little parts of it. So I was just curious if you guys had any school programs similar to that and how you structured it.
A quiet group today.
What type of program did you refer to it as TAPS?
Yeah, so we call it TAPS. It's a transition advocacy program. We just go into the high school and teach a 1 hour lesson each a week to a bunch of different high schools here in St. George. It's all about like transition skills. So we have a communication one, a stress management one. We have, it goes all school years. So we've got a bunch of different lessons. But I was just wondering what kind of topics or if you guys have anything similar to that.
Okay. That kind of sounds like our fast track program.
Okay.
Everybody's programs are kind of titled differently.
Definitely.
We have a curriculum, but we have a 31 lesson plan, so to speak, and we do it all across the year as well. But we have yet to include stress management in that program, but we focus more on those, just those communication skills, those abilities to negotiate, understanding different styles of communication, what they look like, what they sound like. We might do some mock activities where they get to do some kind of acting in a way where they get to try it out and do them amongst their peers or things of that nature. So we just kind of try to make them as fun as possible to get the participation, as opposed to being in the room for an hour and listening to you talk. There are games. I know for a lot of my students, I do memory games. Sometimes I'll do like a modified Jeopardy. We'll do like a modified Wheel of Fortune, a Family Feud, and just different ways to kind of encourage them to participate. And we try to do like a review at the end. Sometimes there's like a worksheet in between, a very simple worksheet so that it's not overwhelming. Occasionally, there are some hands-on things you can bring in, try to work on some of those vocational skills without really being a voc program, but more so like here's some actual real life work activities you might be doing. So I might bring envelopes to kind of have them stuff envelopes, to kind of have to discuss these are things you could do in an office. You know, I might bring a bin with some file folders and we talk about job exploration and here's a job and here's an example of some things you might do. Just trying to create hands-on things. It might seem like a lot, but at the same time, they remember the activities because a lot of the hands-on stuff is the stuff that's usually really interesting. And getting them to participate is probably the hard part. So the more hands-on you are, the better it is.
That I definitely agree.
I get it. It's an adventure with trying to figure out things to keep them entertained. Sometimes I use videos. When we talk about interviewing skills, I'll show them an interview of a video of an interview that's not going really well, and have them kind of point out the things that are inappropriate or maybe not such a good idea for an interview. Then we might do the video where things are going well. What good things did you see? Have you had an interview? Are these some experiences you've had? I'm just trying to keep the open forum option.
Okay.
It's kind of been my thing. It seems to help with my transition age youth because it gives them a platform to kind of communicate their experiences because many of them are doing job coaching programs and many of them are in the community with their transition programs. So it's a great kind of a gateway to kind of learn about some of those things they're doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm just here looking for any tips, tricks, advice. So thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And Crystal, you talked about the video of, in a job interview, which I think is brilliant, by the way. Do you all also do, like how to create a resume and, just April just having gone through, a hiring process for one specifically for the youth position. It was really interesting to see, some of the resumes that came in that were just so bare bones. And I thought, oh boy, if you if you had just beefed up, that resume a little bit, it would look so different than just Uber driver from this time to this time, and that was it. So I'm wondering what kind, is anyone doing, specific how to create, a good resume?
I do have a full lesson plan where I focus on the entire interview process from applying for a job, what you would wear to that interview, the attire, how you would fill out an actual online application, how to fill out that paper application, and then sitting down section by section, going through that resume and how to input volunteering as a work experience and things of that nature. So we do have a full lesson that can cover that. At the request of most of the teachers, they really like the support of that additional outside person because we do work with a lot of career service options. So generally my lesson includes what I get from like our work nets and things that they know that their clients are looking for in resumes, and specific age groups. So we do kind of focus on some of that. And I think that's extremely important because I don't think many people realize what you can put on a resume. And I think especially with our younger population, they feel like they don't have work history. Why would I do a resume? If you have volunteer experience, put it on the resume. If you've done a micro business at your school, put it on your resume because, all of that shows work history and work experience. So there is some breakdown with teaching what you can put on that resume and what not to put on your resume also. So that's a whole lesson in itself.
Thanks, Crystal. It sounds like you all are doing some really great work over there. Red Rock Center as well. That's pretty impressive. Great resources. Yeah, because when you think about it, it can be so daunting, coming out of high school and if you make the decision that your college is not for you and having to consider that next step of employment is it's a really tricky thing to navigate for any of us. Just coming up with a good viable resume is a really can be a really heavy lift because you want it to look good and you know, there are things like you were talking about, Crystal, that can go on there that you wouldn't necessarily think can go on there, like the volunteerism. So that's wonderful. As we come to the near the end of the call, I did want to make sure that everyone saw that Margaret kindly put the YouTube link for the Kelly's Kitchen 4-course series. So please do check those out. Does anyone have anything in closing? I'm going to mute because my grandkids are about to come in and the dog is barking.
So, McKenna, does
Okay. If no one has anything else, then I will give you 7 minutes of your day back. I think this was a super valuable call. We got a lot of information, and I really appreciate the information that you all provided. You know, great discussion today. And be looking for the new youth advisor to take over the calls starting next month. I, for one, am thrilled that that I will be able to turn back over these duties to the new youth. And yeah, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Harm Tarrant, but that is who we hired to take on this position, and we're thrilled to have him on board. So if anyone thinks of any questions or comments you want to add to the discussion today, please don't hesitate to shoot those to me. I put my email in the chat, and yeah, I look forward to the continued discussion. And thank you so much to our interpreter and our cart writer for being here today and making our Youth Coordinator Connect call accessible to all. So with that, I will end the call, and thank you guys so much. I really appreciate the dialogue today. Thanks, Kayla.